Hey everybody, it's great to see everybody today and want to welcome Coach Stern and Coventry, Coach Coventry, Coach Rapoti, Coach O'Mara, and Coach Weeks, all coaches. But don't worry, we're here to talk about youth football today and city football, and we're going to have some fun. And I think if you take away one thing from any one of these gentlemen, I think you'd be better off for it. So that's kind of where we're starting. Dan, I know Dan, the head coach of St. Pat's Irish, and Geoff certainly Immaculata Saints, and I'll go into your background in a second. Tristano, I think you've coached everywhere, certainly at both high school and club level. Ron, I think you're at club level also, if I'm not mistaken. And Brandon, you're obviously with the Sooners and so many other clubs in the past. And maybe just everybody introduce yourselves, and we'll get it. For myself, I was the NFL Youth Coach of the Year in 2014. You guys are all better coaches. My strength was just working with youth. That's it. Okay, so I grew up in a rough area, and I speak the language, and that's why I'm just here to connect with youth and let them know about the opportunity and all their potential if they can make it. And that's kind of what it's all about. Dad, do you want to start?
Yeah, like Coach Howard said, my name is Coach Stern, head coach at St. Pat's High School, and been there for the last 2 years, reviving that program. And that's, obviously been a big challenge getting a new program started, and a lot of obstacles we had to overcome. But with some luck and some help along the way, we got equipment, we got enough players now to really push the program, and we're just looking forward to the next season, whenever that may begin. I've also worked with the Cumberland Panthers in the past, as well for 7 years as offensive coordinator, offensive assistant over there. And I worked with a lot of great coaches over there, all different levels of football. And I just, really feel that football in Ottawa is growing, and it's something that more and more players are finding interest in and finding opportunities to play abroad and really expand horizons with the sport.
For myself, I originally started off not a football player. I played every other sport you can imagine: basketball, soccer, hockey, you name it, I played it. I actually grew up, people don't know this, most of my childhood was actually spent around Jasmine Crescent near LBP and Colonel By area. And we didn't have too much growing up. I was fortunate enough that my parents got some pretty good gigs out in Orleans, and we got to move out to Orleans, and lucky enough to end up at St. Pete, grades 9 to 12. And from there, decided I was going to play football. And I'll be honest, I was pretty trash my first couple of years, just learning the game. But it really clicked around grade 11 when I started to grow, and made a couple all-star teams from there. We got to go to OFSA my grade 11 year, won an OFSA championship. And then finally got recruited by a number of schools in U Sports, former CIS, and then ended up at Bishop. My final decision. Ups and downs at Bishop's, I would say. Ultimately, it really wasn't about that. It was about the connection with the players and the staff. I went through a few coordinators, a couple head coaches, and one of the biggest reasons I actually went to Bishop's was there was a black head coach at the time, and it was Leroy Blue. And he was a big mentor to me, and somebody I really appreciate and still look up to up until his days with the Red Blacks, up until recently. And from there, was lucky enough, didn't get drafted, but got signed. I had a 3-year contract with the Montreal Alouettes. I only unfortunately got to play 1 year, most of it on practice squad. But it was a pretty cool opportunity, and I really thank the CFL and U Sports for allowing me to do that. And I just, right now, I'm so happy to be at Immaculata and teaching now. My background in coaching essentially is I started at Sacred Heart as the junior football head coach. And then I did a couple coaching gigs with the Cumberland Panthers, but through the junior GGs. And with the junior GGs, I was the receivers coach. And from there, I ended up getting a full-time gig at Immaculata. And I've been the offensive coordinator and the co-head coach, assistant head coach, whatever you want to call it, from then on. And we've been lucky enough now to revamp, kind of like St. Pat's, the program, We started from zero. We didn't have a team. And now we actually have 2 teams. We have a 7-on-7 JV and a 12-on-12 varsity team.
Hey, Tristano or Ron?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Ron O'Mara. I grew up around here playing football in the Ottawa area for the North Gloucester Giants. I also played for the Cumberland Panthers, OVFL, the Ottawa Colts, as well as the Ottawa Sooners. From there, went on to play at St. FX University and had the fortune of being drafted to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Played there for 2 years, then another year with the Red Blacks, and then another year with the BC Lions in the CFL. And now I'm back to my community in Ottawa, and I'm looking forward to being able to continue my coaching career with the North Gloucester Giants football organization and just giving back to the organization that gave back to me when I was young. So it's a pleasure to be on here with all y'all.
So my name is Tristano. I've been coaching since 1987. Pretty much coached at every club level, at 4 high schools, so it'd be Glebe, St. Pat's, St. Joe's, St. FX. And then for the last 20 so odd years, I've been coaching with the Sooners, and coaching some of the guys here who are on this video. Ron, I coached him at the Sooners from 2009, I think, to 2011, was it, or 2009-10? I think, or something like that. I got involved in coaching once I went to university and realized that I couldn't really do school and university at the same time, so I kind of quit football and found my niche in coaching in 1987. I wasn't the smartest guy in high school, so I realized that if I played football and tried to do school, I'd probably end up failing and flunking out, so that's not going to help. And I decided to coach, and I've been coaching ever since. I've been blessed to coach a lot of different kids. And a lot of them gone up to the next level through the Sooner program, and it's just been amazing. So I've had a great time, and thank all these guys that are here.
Oh shoot, it's me, yeah.
Hey, Brandon.
I'm Brandon Weeks. I started my career with Gloucester South Raiders. I grew up in the south end of the city, Dubs, South Keys, rough area. Played my high school ball at St. Pat's under Malcolm Webb. And then I went on to play at Ottawa U, transferred over to Bishops in Coventry's first year. Was it your first year? Yeah. I started coaching. It seems to be the trend with Cumberland Panthers. I think everyone on this panel was a part of that organization at some point. Ron Karam, who I played with his kids through Raiders, he brought me on after my first year to do receivers under Rob Carl, which was like huge in my growth as a coach and a player. I ended up playing overseas for a couple of years in Norway. Came back. I got a tryout with Hamilton through Kennever. Obviously, that was not very fruitful, but it was a great moment to actually get out on that field and do that. So I'd say that looking back on it now with the youth that we have, I transitioned into a different role coaching at Football North, where we were down in the States playing against elite competition. And then now I'm over at Capital City Academy, startup program, starting fresh, which is the trend with our 2 high school coaches at Immaculata and at St. Pat's. It's pretty rough, but it's a good thing to go through. I enjoy it, the recruiting part, and it's a great group of guys over there.
And I think everybody's been very humble because some of these are probably some of the best football minds in the city. And just thinking, for making a slight audible here, for young players that are just starting out, what did football teach you? What's important for them to know about? And if anybody, just feel free to jump in. What's important about football for young youth starting out, and kind of what did the game teach you, type of thing?
I'll tie that first. I think for me, if you're a youth playing football, you got to quickly learn that football is a team sport. It's not an individual sport, and you got to be part of the team concept and work within that team concept. I know when I first started playing, I was a little bit selfish. I always wanted to play running back or play linebacker. I didn't realize that wasn't a team concept, you know, and fortunately I was blessed with working out as a young kid. So when I was 17, I was probably the strongest kid on my high school team. So they'd always put me on line and put me on the defensive line or offensive line. And they bugged the crap out of me because, I want to play running back. I want to play, linebacker. And that was selfish because I would have helped the team at the line position and not at running back or linebacker. So just remember, it's a team sport, and do what's best for the team and not what's best for yourself so much. And hopefully within that concept that you're doing something that's best for yourself, because you're learning how to work together as a team. The other thing is as a youth, especially for the young kids, play every position. Don't stick around that, I want to play this position, I want to play that position. Play every position, because you don't know from the time you are young to the time you get older what position you're actually going to end up playing. You know, you could be a quarterback as a youth, but then end up, as you get up to 17, you're 6'6" and 290 pounds. So you're not going to be playing quarterback. You're going to be playing offensive line or defensive line. So learn every position, and that'll kind of make you a well-rounded football player at the same time.
Yeah, to touch on what Tristano was saying, I've always liked to use in the locker room like the common goal. What is our common goal on the day? To win? Yeah, cool. That's everybody's goal. Get better. Understand what getting better means. It's not necessarily, I got to be the best no matter what. I'll take your effort over the best guy who wants to give me 50%. Always go 100%. If you make the wrong mistake, do it 100%. Because then now when you get coached up on it, you'll understand, okay, well, I can see where it was wrong. I understand where it was wrong. Criticism is a consistent thing in this sport, from your teammates, from your coaches, but it's all constructive. Like, we need that feedback. You need to understand and take that in. Your ego isn't as big as it is. Ottawa's small. You might be a top guy here. You go anywhere else, you're floating in the median, maybe. So understand the difference between being coached, where at some levels in the city you're going to get coached up, and other levels you're going to get used in one position. There's no need for you to play over like 30 games in a year, when at the university level you're only going to play 8, maybe 11 if you make it all the way through. That's the big thing you need to understand. What is your common goal? Like, today or this week is insert. Understand that we need to perfect these 3 plays.
And I'd just like to touch on that point because, especially with kids starting out in football, you have different types of athletes and different levels of athleticism, and, that takes you so far. But if you're not disciplined and you're not a team player, then especially at the next level, you're not going to amount to anything. You're really not going to have a chance to get on the field because, if you're not learning from those mistakes and you're not becoming a disciplined player, which in turn turns you into a disciplined student, a disciplined, person out in society, right? So you need to be able to have that responsibility and each day get a little better. Like the coach has said, be a team player and become a disciplined person if you think you want to, take your game to the next level and continue playing the sport.
Well,
I think, yeah. For me personally, just to touch on, all 3 of you are making amazing points. Just for me personally, I always harp with my guys is 2 things. It's know your role and be ready. So knowing your role is understanding where you fit within the team, right? Everybody is going to be the star receiver. Not everybody's going to be the starting defensive lineman. But some of you might get some time on special teams. And some of you might be the long snapper. You have to understand that at the end of the day, you all play a role. If you don't make that tackle on special teams and you're not running 100%, then you're not selling out for your teammates. If you're not willing to go run down the field as a gunner, okay, or block that guy that we need on field goal, then you're not helping your teammates. You got to sell out for the guy beside you, right? Knowing your role. And then the other one is, like I said, be ready. For me, I was never the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, but the biggest thing that kept me in football on football teams and in football games, mental. 90% of the game when you get to higher levels is your playbook. If you don't understand what you're doing and what concept you're running, do you really think a coach is going to trust you to get on the field when it's crunch time? If I have to look on my bench and we got 3 or 4 injuries, a DB goes down, a linebacker goes down, heck, my starting quarterback goes down. If I got to look back and say, you ready? And you kind of look at me like, chances are I'm probably going to the next guy. So the reality is, again, 2 things: know your role, be ready. That's what it taught me for sure.
Hey, Ron. How about for you, football? What's the recommendation for kids that are starting out?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. The internet connection out here is a bit unstable, so sometimes I can't hear what you guys are saying, so I don't know when I'm going. So just bear with me here. I've heard quite a bit, though, about what you guys have been saying, and you guys already made some great points. One thing I'd add is one of the biggest advices I could give is, especially for me and how I got to go as far as I could, was I developed good habits at a young age. And those habits come with simple things. Show up to practice every single time you can. Don't come late. Build those habits. And when you come into practice, don't come with the mindset of, I'm just going to go through the motions. That's a great time to learn and soak up all the knowledge from your coaches, to challenge your teammates. And in those moments, you're building really solid attributes like leadership, accountability, and discipline. And all those things kind of go outside of football, right? It goes into your schooling. It goes into everything that you do that scouts are going to be looking for, that professional teams are going to be looking for if you get to the opportunity to go to university. And so honestly, one of the biggest things is build those habits young. And it starts at the practice field, right? How you act in the practice field will dictate how you play in the game as well. Because you never know who's watching. These days, scouts are coming to practices and they're watching what you're doing outside of the games because they want to know who you are, right? So you want to make sure that you're building those habits consistently outside of the field and as well as on the field and in practice.
Hey, Ron, do you have any advice for a player that's looking to move on to college now or eventually the pros, like their last maybe year of club or high school? What should they be thinking about, or their focus, or not worry about, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think there's a lot. I can go along with that, but one of the biggest things I'm seeing a lot now with younger kids is, especially if they're really good, there's egos that kind of build up. So if maybe a certain school is talking to you, they may be like, I don't want to go there, so I'm not really going to talk to them. But one of the biggest things I'll tell you is you never know where you're going to end up. And you never know which coaches are going to end up at whatever school. So it's important to treat each school that's talking to you with respect, because that also goes a long way in terms of how they think you treat other people, right? And another thing is challenge yourself. One of the things I did, right after club football was, all right, I'm going to go play some OVFL football. That got more competitive. Then Team Canada came around the corner, and I was like, I'm going to try it for that too. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're investing into yourself, and you're building a better competitive edge that you might not have against, or that you'll have against other people. The more you challenge yourself and the more you surround yourself in terms of being able to play with high caliber guys, the better you're just going to be. Because when you're young, your ceiling's so high, and you're just going to continue to learn and build and grow upon whatever it is that you have athletically and mentally as a football athlete. And even when you get to university, you'll still be growing. And in order to continue to grow, it's good to kind of challenge yourself out there.
And I'll just add, I think your work effort and your work is everything, right? Because I was a roommate of mine, played first round pick in the NFL, and he had the best habits ever, man. That guy got out at 5:30 in the morning. I hear Rocky pumping, and he was out doing it, right? And if other kids are going to parties, he was out working, right? And he, it was all business for him, had fun, but knew his place. He knew where he wanted to go from the time he was 15 years old, that he was going to the pros, and nobody was going to stop him from that goal.
Yeah, and I'll add just like quickly. I'll add off to that is work on your craft. I can't say that enough, especially when you're young. You know, what you do offside, like out of the field, just because you're doing it in practice doesn't mean you can't practice at home. You know, if you're a receiver, how many balls are you going to catch, right? Like what are you working on in terms of your visualization? Keep working on your craft. You know, get with a local gym or trainer, you know, if you can, and have them start building you in the gym and stuff like that, so that when you get to the next level, you could be able to compete with some of those guys, because they're a lot bigger and stronger out there, especially for a lot of guys who are looking to go out to the States.
Anyone else? The next level?
For me, as a high school coach, and a teacher, you know, for me, it's stressing the importance of academics. I know you hear that over and over and over again. But as someone who's in the classroom with guys who are in 7 and 8 right now and hoping to go to 9 to 12 and saying, oh, I'm going to make it to the NFL someday, I'm going to make it pro, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that story over and over and over again from guys that I've even played with. And in fact, I'll be honest, I wasn't a great student. But you start to realize offers start coming in, a light switch better switch on inside your brain to tell you, you know what? If I want to make this happen, I've got to worry about my studies. Because let's be honest, after the next level, you've got to set yourself up for life. And the biggest gift you can give yourself is to prepare yourself academically for the life that comes after football. Now, I hope that everybody has a 10 to 12 year football career in the pros. But the reality is that's just not what's going to happen. So I can't stress enough to these kids, and I over and over and over again, is to tell them, you got to at least have an 80 average, at least in university courses. And that's to get into general programs these days. Because let's be honest, most of these coaches, if they hear anything under an 80, or you're telling them, oh, I got kind of a 75, it's next man up. They're not worried about you anymore. They got another guy who probably does the exact same thing you do, but has an 80 average. So they don't care. They just move on. And it's cutthroat like that, but it's business. And that's how the real world works. You want to get hired and you tell them, I kind of do this. Well, they got a guy just like you who doesn't kind of do that. He does it every time. So you got to make sure you take care of that side.
Just to kind of piggyback on that point, there's always someone, you know, working, you know, when you're not. So if you're taking a day off, if you're being, you know, lazy or not really putting your heart into it, you better believe that, like I said before, there's someone who has just the same amount of talent, but maybe they're more disciplined and they're out there grinding on the field, 7 a.m., ready to go in the heat, doesn't matter, right? So if you want to make the next level, doesn't matter if it's, you know, a university in Canada, try and make it in the States, you have to, you know, put your heart into it. You got to get in the playbook. You got to really understand the sport and continue pushing yourself and expand your knowledge base of how you are as an athlete.
Yeah, I can expand on that with Geoff and what Stern just said. That's I know that with the Sooners, we had a number of guys go down south and play. And I remember talking to some of the coaches from down south, and I'm talking about the University of Virginia, Buffalo, Penn State, and those coaches. The first thing they asked is not how good of a football player is he. First thing they ask is, what's his character like? And then the second thing they ask is what are your grades like? And they always ask for your transcripts right off the bat. Because I think some kids understand that you can be the best football player in the world. You can be a really good football player, but if you don't have good character, you're not going anywhere. You can be a good football player if you don't have marks. Well, you're not going to go anywhere. So I think character and really working on your school grades complement your ability as a football player, and that opens up the opportunities for you to move forward, right? I mean, you got to remember down in the South, you have to go through the NCAA clearinghouse, and you have to get a 2.5 or better combined GPA as they combine that with your marks in school versus your SATs. Problem is 2.5 is not going to get you in any school. You have to have a 3.0 or better So you can have the best film in the world. You can do your clearinghouse. You can get approved by the NCAA, but if you don't have those grades, they can't even offer you. I remember the coach at Buffalo telling me that. I said, I can't even offer a guy if he doesn't have the grades to get in. I don't care how good of a football player he is. I don't care if he clears the NCAA and goes through all that process. If he doesn't have the grades to get into school, I cannot offer him a scholarship. So that's really important, all those areas. Apart from the football side of things, obviously, and working hard in your craft, and as Ron said, in the gym and all those kind of stuff, it's the school grades and it's the character that they really look at. And from every question I ever dealt with a university coach from down south, that's the first two things they ask me.
You, Brandon?
Yeah, so everyone, like, the main theme is academics, work ethic, and to tie it on to like the field to get next level, I truly believe your body language is the most important thing when it comes to a recruit. You can make the best plays in the game. As soon as one of your teammates do something, you flail your arms in the air and your whole demeanor is just like, oh, this guy. You're not a team player. You're only thinking about yourself. You're that individual guy who, as we dub in the locker room, is cancerous because you just spread that negativity around. Once you learn to control those emotions and get rid of the ego and just, no matter what happens, it's the next play mentality, you'll thrive at the next level. You'll have your playbook down pat. You'll be able to help guys coming in with their playbook. Your work ethic on the field is huge. Your work ethic when no one's looking and you're out at 6:30, 7 in the morning, running your routes, working your back pedal, whatever it may be, is showing other guys like, wow, that's unreal. How are you getting 2 workouts in, going to class, getting the mandatory lift, and hitting practice? Like, it's a full-time job as a student athlete, and then you have a full-time job as a student. Like, control your body language, and it's going to help you get into whatever school you want to. Control those emotions on the field where you can win great and lose even better. You'll have all types of recruits all over you.
So I want to thank Coach Stern, Coach Coventry, Coach Raponi, Coach Weeks, and Coach O'Mara. Just one important question as we queue up here, and it's kind of the reason why we're all here, and that's for Ashton and Ashton's legacy, and kind of what would why is this important to our community and to youth football, and anybody have any thoughts about that? Feel free to step in. I know for myself, I understand how important sportsmanship was, playing the game hard, like really hard, but also being a good sport, knowing that it's a small community, and who may be your enemy today is probably your teammate tomorrow. So those are just kind of my thoughts. Anybody else want to talk about Ashton and his legacy here today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a special place in my heart for Ashton. I first of all recruited him to play Sooners. But for me, he epitomized everything we're talking about. Ashton worked hard. He always did the extra work and wanted to get to that next level. And that's what it's about. You want to have 40 Ashtons on your team. If we had 40 Ashtons in a team, you're going to win a championship. That's just the essence of it, and guys like Ron and Ashton, all the guys that were playing that year in 2011 when Ashton was there. I remember recruiting him, and I know Coach McAvoy was looking for a running back, but the running back had to be a specific running back because his offense is specific. So, he had to have good vision. He had to be able to catch a football out of the backfield. He has to be able to block, and that's all those areas Ashton did. And when he was on the football field and in practice, he even worked harder to make himself better that way. And to me, that's what a football player, a team player, and someone who has character and someone who wants to work at the craft. He's an Ashton Dixon. That's what you want to find. So I mean, he got a special place in my heart. Obviously, I recruited him and coached him, and I was a running back coach that year, and you know, he was. I've never seen anybody work as hard as he does on and off the field to make himself ready and better. So. And when I remember Andy seeing him the first practice he came out, although coming from the first practice, Brandon can tell you, is I had to call him because he was playing somewhere else, and I had to get him to come back to us. And the funny story I have about Ashton, and this tells you about his character, because he was playing for another team, which would remain nameless, and he came to practice with us, and he still had the other team's equipment. And I remember for about a week, he was still using the other team's equipment. And I looked at him and said, Ashton, you know, we have equipment for you, right? I mean, if you want to hand back your equipment and we can get you equipment. And he says, I just feel really bad, coach, that I left. You know, I'm glad I'm here and I want to play here, but I feel really bad that I left, and I don't want to, and I just feel bad. I don't want to see him, you know, because I said, look, go get some equipment, give me your equipment, and I'll bring your equipment back for you. But that's his character, right? He had a big heart, and he always wanted to please everybody, right? And so that's what you want in a football player, you know. That's what you want in a son, right? That's what you want. That's the epitome of a football player. That's what he was, truly was.
I'll jump in here. So for me, Ashton, I never got to play with Ashton. He was in the CIS with St. FX at the same time I was. We were training together in the off seasons. I definitely did some field time with him. We would go throw the ball at Millennium with Alex Skinner and a couple other receivers and running backs and stuff, and I got to meet him through that. But the biggest thing was my brother, who is now my O-line coach, was his teammate at the time and actually blocked for him. And he's written something about him from his season with OPFL with the Panthers. And I just kind of want to share that with you guys, if that's okay. So my brother says, the years I spent playing with or against Ashton were always fun. Never the biggest, never the fastest, and never the strongest. Ashton, however, had this aura of greatness and determination to him. And he would just simply get the job done and refuse to take no for an answer. You knew you could always count on him to get the yardage, and he was always patient behind the line, waiting for the hole to open up. He would always give you 110% and made my job easier as an O-lineman, knowing he was in the backfield, because you didn't have to worry about the job getting done. One story that comes to mind about the kind of person Ashton was when we were stopped at a rest stop near Toronto after our game late one night. There was another group of younger individuals. They were there trying to create a confrontation with Ashton and a couple of our teammates. And despite all the provocation, asking for them to actually fight Ashton and the teammates, he was never at a loss for words with witty comebacks and actually refused to be provoked by these individuals into those physical altercations. This story sticks in my head and is what is always the first story that comes to mind when I think about the person he truly was. The type of guy who would stick up for his friends and never an aggressor. And then on top of that, for me personally, again, just speaking with St. Pat's and stuff, we're trying to, as much as we can in Ottawa high school football, keep his legacy alive. So what we've done between St. Pat's and us is we've created the Ashton Dixon Memorial Bowl. So that's a game between Immaculata and St. Pat's that's played yearly. And there is a trophy that goes back and forth. And there's Ashton's mom, Donna, has graciously donated so much to that. And both MVPs of the game get some money for some training, et cetera. And there's just a lot of good things that go into that. And on top of that, the MVP award, not even through me, it was actually unanimous throughout all the coaches and the committee. I never even put up the motion. It was Kevin Kelly. The MVP award has actually been renamed to the Ashton Dixon Offensive MVP Award. And I think that's something that's really big for the city of Ottawa, and understanding his legacy, not just as a club player, but also as a high school player. He was an impact to all of Ottawa wherever he played. And I think that resonates with why we've chosen to use his name to honor an MVP person, because he's an MVP type person himself.
And Dan, your experience with the bowl game and
Absolutely. The first bowl game was last year, and I think that's just a great way to, like Coach Coventry said, honor his name. And I think I unfortunately didn't get the pleasure to meet Ashton, but just knowing his story and meeting Donna, his mother, and kind of having, you know, a sense of what he meant to the St. Pat's community, it's just really, it is an honor to be the coach of the school that he went to, and have him, you know, have the next generation know his name and know what he did for the sport. And basically, you know, having him honored basically gives people an idea of the kind of player he was, like Coach Tristano said, and really, you know, how to aspire to be that type of player for yourself.
Yeah. Where do I even start? I can go on and on, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible here. But I mean, I'll say this: Ashton and I became super close. We got to play community football together with the Panthers and Sooners, and then went to university together, where we got super close. And if I'm going to be very honest, he's one of the biggest reasons why I was able to go as far as I did after university in terms of the CFL. We both talked about it. We both pushed each other tremendously. We had such a competitive relationship where in everything we did, I'm talking about not just on the field, but even off the field, like video games and stuff. I can't tell you how much we just battled it out competitively. And it was all in good fun all the time. But that was just the guy who he was. He expected the best out of you. And that really inspired me to go out and work even a little bit harder. You know, at St. Effects, if I'm going to be even honest, maybe I'm biased, but he was honestly one of the best running backs I've ever seen or got to even witness. The way he made people miss tackles was just, you can't really teach that type of skill. It's something that you just have. And, you know, Ashton was one of those guys where if he puts his mind into anything, it didn't matter what it was, he was going to do it. I'll give you an example, okay? One of the more funny but like insane memories I have of him was we were training for the East-West Bowl in 2013, and it was raining outside, and we were practicing our 40s. And I remember he was running this weird like form, like he was like extending his legs, and I remember him like self-talking to himself, and I'm like, Ashton, what was that? He's like, I found a new running form. I'm like, I don't think that's gonna work. He uses it again and pulls his hamstring, and I was like, I told you that ain't gonna work. East-West is like not even 3 weeks away. How the heck are you gonna do this, right? Like a hamstring's a serious injury. And he said, don't worry about it. So we took that day off, didn't really train any 40, not until the combine, and I honestly thought he wasn't going to be able to run. He ran his 40 and had like the second highest running back 40 there, and had a tremendous East-West Bowl experience. He's just one of those guys who is so mentally tough that he could do something that you think you can't do, but he can. And that was one of the reasons why I think we got close. You know, we were very like-minded in a lot of things. And, I mean, he's honestly a big steward in the Ottawa community, as you can see from what Dan, Geoff, and Tristano have been saying. His memory will always live on forever. And, you know, we talk about the Ashton Dixon Youth Empowerment Organization, and there's just many more. His legacy will definitely live on. And, you know, I'm just glad that I got to be a part of his life for as long as it was. And the least that I could do is just keep his dream alive.
Good. Well, being his older brother and knowing almost everything about him, Ashton was the epitome of hard work and dedication. For you young players coming up through NCAFA and wanting to switch teams all the time, loyalty is key. That's what Ashton was. Raiders, Cumberland, Sooners, X. I'll tell you a story talking to him when he was at East-West Bowl. For guys who have gone, you know, you trade your emblem of your logo. Ashton was so picky on who he would give that X to. He said they have to have that character in order to put this X on their helmet. The pride that he had for St. FX was like, I've never seen that. I guess it's something that he developed over there. And in his last year, he didn't want to come home. He just wanted to train. When he knew he was going to go back, he's like, I'm staying here to train. That's how focused he was. So starting this foundation organization, it's something to help these kids so they understand you don't need to do the things that your peers are going to pull you to. That's what we want. We want to bring them in and be like, these are the resources that will help you learn these characteristics as a young man. So I could speak on Ashton, where his form of dieting was, I'm not going to eat McDonald's for like the next month. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I can say. But this organization and the bowl game are just like the tip of the iceberg right now. I thank all you guys for joining in on this Zoom call and speaking in such high regard of my brother. It means a lot.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I'll leave those the last words. That was about the best hour of football I've ever seen in my life, because I thought it'd be 30 minutes and we're an hour. So I want to thank everybody for joining us and for the people watching today, and just take those lessons. And, we can make this city better and this community better. Just follow Ash's legacy, and we all get along, and let's just get at it, man. Football is competitive. Let's just get at it. So thank you, everybody.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.